Okay, we're recording. This is Wrong Speed Record Chat number 40. We have David Ryley. How you doing?
Hi there, how you doing?
Good. Where are you?
I'm sitting in my dining room because this is the only place I can get an internet connection, apparently. So you can't see my massive record collection behind me, and I was going to pick myself up with a huge amount of stuff, but now I've just got a green wall.
Got it.
Yeah.
Where are you in the world?
I'm in West Bridgeford, which is just south of the river in Nottingham, just the other side of Trent Bridge.
Nottingham. Have you always been in Nottingham?
For quite a long time. I think I moved here in about 1985. But before that, I mostly grew up, I suppose, in Felixstowe on the east coast.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So David was in Fudge Tunnel, who were one of my favourite ever bands. So this is a total honour.
Thank you.
Yeah, like seriously, I've said it many times, but it's when we formed. We had put a little advert up, and the little advert said, "We want to be like Fudge Tunnel meets Can."
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
And I think you've more or less achieved that now.
there's about
early on it was kind of more Fudge Tunnel than Can, and Can has kind of gradually come in, I think.
Yeah.
No, I was honoured just to be put in the same sentence as Can, to be honest. Anyone who can look at those two bands and think of them with the same thought, wow, that's
Well, it's something I want to talk about actually, because I'm just going to leap straight ahead here and dive straight in. Is that so? When Fudge Tunnel were about, and I was buying their records, and the first record I bought by the band was this one, this charming.
Yeah, that's a great shot, isn't it? That's actually me.
Yes.
Before I lost a lot of weight.
Who is it? Actually?
It was a postcard that me and my wife used to have in our toilet. Along with, we just covered the whole inside of the toilet with weird postcards, and that was one of them. And we thought we'd make a good record sleeve. So Rob Tennant, who ran Pig Boy Records, had to track it down. And I think he had to pay some money for it as well for us to put it on a record.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah, so it was all properly done. We didn't just pinch it and hope for the best.
No, which a lot of bands do, just pinch and hope for the best.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It depends how punk rock you're being, I think.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, this is. So I was like about 16, picked this up, and to my mind, Fudge Tunnel came out of a world of, and I've got a few records here which I think that Fudge Tunnel came out of. And what's interesting to me is
with the Nolan sisters, isn't it? So, oh, there we go. Okay.
So yeah. I'm talking like, in the world that, to my mind, as someone who lived just outside of London, not in Nottingham, not in amongst it at all.
Yeah.
Like it was like Sync, it was this Therapy record, the first two Therapy records, should I say? It was some Heresy.
Yeah.
And also, you might not agree, but to someone from the outside, I had the Senseless Things.
Okay. Well, I think we played with nearly all of those bands.
Yeah.
One time or another. Obviously, the Stupids weren't a thing by the time we came along, but Sync we played a lot because we were, the record labels were owned by the same parent company, Vinyl Solution.
Right.
Therapy we played with a couple of times. I think we might have played with them the very first time they played outside Northern Ireland.
Right.
And they blew us off the stage. They were brilliant then. I kind of went off them later on a bit, but
we loved it.
At that point when they did that record, they were pretty darn good.
They were really exciting.
Senseless Things, I think we supported once, along with Silverfish. I think we were like bottom of the bill at the Lead Mill.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Sync we played with a lot, because as I was telling you before you pressed record, Ed from Sync particularly was a bit of a mentor to us in the early days, and they were just really nice guys to be with as well. Yeah. But he told me once about this little wrinkle that a lot of bands had started to do with peel sessions, where if you got a peel session, you got paid based on the amount of people in the band.
Classic.
So if you invited all your mates along to play a triangle or go quack or whatever, you could slip them a fiver. They say they get to say they're on a peel session, and you got a lot more money. Unfortunately, they were starting to get wise to it by the time we made a peel session. So, but that's the reason that we credited our little fluffy mascot Fudge Bear as spiritual advisor on the first peel session. So if you look in your little book, it says Fudge Bear spiritual advisor, and you've got to credit them for detail, because on the second one, the second peel session, it says Fudge Bear absent.
So yeah, in this book, here we are. First session was the 21st of May, 1990. Yep, and Dave Ryley, Alex Newport, Fudge Bear, a spiritual advisor.
Yep.
And Adrian Parkin. Yeah.
Does Fudge Bear actually come before Adrian Parkin?
No, actually, I'd skipped the line to you first. I didn't realise I saw Adrian Parkin, and he's on the songs line, so I got confused.
Right. For a moment there, I thought you weren't going to say the words Adrian Parkin, and he'd never forgive me. So.
No, he's totally there. Yeah, and then the next one, the 19th of June, 1992, Fudge Bear absent.
Yeah. He was still around. I think he just wanted a line that day. So.
Yeah. And do you have this book?
I do, yeah. Someone gave it to me years ago. But and I've mostly used it just to look at my name in a book and go, oh look, I'm in that book.
That's the only reason I've got it.
It's quite handy now and again. If you're having an argument with someone about, when some band did a peel session, it's quite nice to look at that. So slap it down in front of them. Go on, check that.
So I do have, there's a couple of other records here that I lumped you in with at the time. Okay, so we've got Swerve Driver. We
played with them.
Yeah.
All these bands were basically playing around at the same time, weren't they? So these are all the sort of British bands. And Bivouac. And coincidentally, I'm currently in a band with the drummer who plays on that Bivouac album. The first, I'm assuming he's on that record. That's the first Bivouac record, yeah?
Yeah, this is the EP. The drummer is
Anthony Hodgkinson.
Anthony, yeah.
Yeah, he is. He looks a bit different then, but then they all do. Granville is still very tall, but other than that, they all look very different.
Yeah.
Not standing on a box, he really is that tall.
Yeah. I used to love this record. I had them down as because we were all like Buffalo Tom and stuff. It came out of that.
Shouldn't say that.
I know.
But Bivouac sound nothing like Buffalo Tom. Come on.
Yeah, right. Well, no one watches this. It's fine. So yeah, and then got this Bivouac album.
Yeah, I have both those records somewhere as well.
Yeah. But the reason I'm showing those is so then Fudge Tunnel released that record with the big fella in the bath.
Yeah.
And then what label do you sign to?
After that, you mean?
Well, for your first album, the 3 albums you put out.
The first album we signed to Earache.
Yeah.
Having been with Pig Boy Vinyl Solution for the first 2 EPs, but when it came to album time, we were going to do an album for Pig Boy, but the budgetary constraints were such that we ended up going to Earache just so that we could spend more money on making a record. Yeah. It's not like we took money to buy drinks or anything, although that would have been a good idea. We went with Earache purely because they were offering a decent recording budget, and we didn't want to do we didn't want to do a whole album on a shoestring like we'd done the other 2.
Yeah. It's interesting. So the reason I show those is like that world and the Earache world is so different.
Yeah, very different. Yeah.
I know I sort of showed Heresy, and maybe Heresy played a lot with like Napalm Death, and you probably played with Godflesh. So
it's slightly different generations. Although Justin from Godflesh was also in Napalm Death, of course. So there's a sort of lineage there, but a sort of revolving door policy. But yeah, it was very different, but not as different as, let's say, going from an indie label to a major label. No. It wasn't that much of a culture shock. It was just that Earache, because of Napalm Death, and I guess Carcass, and I don't know who really did sell a lot of records. So they had some financial weight. But they were in Nottingham. So if we wanted to go and shout at someone, we could just nip down the road instead of having to go all the way down to London.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
They were local.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's definitely a factor.
Yeah. It's just it was odd to me because Earache being, to my mind at the time, like a metal label, and I just wanted to put it out there really that I didn't think Fudge Tunnel were a metal band. They were more like.
You froze up a bit there, but I'm guessing that you were talking about Earache being more of a metal label than a punk label. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, and you're right. And we had reservations about that. And we didn't really see ourselves as a punk band or a metal band. We were what we were. We like to think, at least. I think a lot of bands are like that. But we didn't particularly have anything against metal. And there were acts on the Earache roster like Godflesh, and some of the sort of odder stuff they were doing, like the John Zorn stuff and whatnot, that we thought was kind of interesting. And we thought maybe that's the way Earache's starting to move. But, if you look at Earache now, the stuff they do now is completely different from all that metal stuff they used to do earlier on. It's much more sort of mainstream than it used to be. But at least the metal they were doing was kind of extreme and interesting metal.
Yeah, well, I was just saying to you before we started that I think since maybe around 1991, when was probably the last Earache record I bought. That was yeah.
What was that?
I did well. No, but now the most recent. I have actually bought an Earache record from fairly recent times.
Oh yes, you said, yeah.
And it's the Wormrot album.
And how is it?
It's awesome.
Is it? Okay. Oh my God. You said then, and I thought it was going to go the other way.
No, it's really, really excellent. I think they're from Singapore. It's 2016, but to my mind, that's still quite
right. Yeah, that's like yesterday.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, but but everything else they do, I don't understand or get. But anyhow, I want to talk about the beginning of Fudge Tunnel, though. How it happened.
Well, that brings us to record shops, really, because Selector Disc in Nottingham played a big part in it, because it used to be a sort of a hub for the local music scene as well as being a record shop. So bands formed by putting notices on the Selector Disc pinboard. And I answered an ad that Alex and Adrian had put in for a new bass player, because their bass player that they've been practicing with had decided he wanted to play guitar instead.
Right.
So they wanted a bass player as well. And then so I showed up, we had a practice, and I think we had like 2 or 3 rehearsals, and then the other guy who moved to guitar left, leaving the 3 of us. So yeah, it was all down to Selector Disc. Wouldn't have happened without Selector Disc, because I didn't know anyone at the time. I wasn't that long in Nottingham. Like I said, I think I moved there in 85. And this was 88.
Right.
So, I spent a few years just sort of in a new town. The only person I knew was my girlfriend and now wife, who was at uni here. So, I don't make friends easily, Joe.
I can see why.
So I had to join a band just to make some friends.
So this is 1988.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you start playing quickly. You had to see the band.
What do you mean, like Heresy quickly, or
No,
not quite that quickly? No, but yeah, there was a sort of. Do you mean start playing live quickly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit hazy, frankly, but in my head, we rehearsed for a while, and we rehearsed in the top room of the Arnold Liberal Club. And we used to have to stop every now and again while they had a committee meeting. They just send someone up and say, "Can you just turn it down a few minutes, lad, while I have a committee meeting?" So then we'd have a fag and a drink or something, and then carry on once the committee meeting had stopped. And we got a few songs together, made a demo tape, sent it around to people, just as much as anything to try and get a live gig
Yeah.
supporting someone. And almost immediately, everyone ignored us, apart from Rob Tennant at Vinyl Solution, who was starting the Pig Boy label. And he's just rang up and said, "Do you want to make a record?" So we got offered the record deal before we ever played a show.
Which is,
I think.
amazing. Yeah.
I think it just about, if we had played a show, we'd played one show, which would have been at Tamworth Arts Centre with some friends of Adrian's.
Yeah, let's say that's the first gig. That sounds like a good one.
It was a classic arts centre gig with lots of local youngsters who were all very excited, not about us, but just about being out for the night. And they'd mostly come to see the headline act, who were, I guess, a sort of sixth form band called King Wadderwick, spelt with a W, King Wadderwick and the Yoggots. So are
they in here?
I doubt it. They were pretty piss poor, but they got themselves properly made up for the event. Particularly their bass player. It's always the bass player, you see, who makes the effort.
I hate bass players.
I know. Well, they've got nothing else to do but put on their makeup, do their nails.
So, and then you start putting shows on.
Yeah. So after we signed with Rob, he was very helpful in getting us some shows because he was connected, you know, and we played quite a lot of shows in London. We played more in London than we played anywhere else, probably for the first year, because Rob got us shows. But he also gave me a long list of promoters to ring and badger and try and get shows, which was sometimes successful, but not often. So I kind of took the bull by the horns and started putting on shows, a lot of which Rob, again, had fed through to me. There'd be people he was working with who come from America, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I started putting shows on at a place called Mr. Bojangles in Nottingham, which was a nightclub on the first floor on Parliament Street.
Right.
Which is quite a seedy little place, but it worked. So we got to do shows with people like Bitch Magnet and Shudder to Think. I put Sync on a couple of times as well, and we'd always be the opening act with whoever was playing.
Yeah.
No, and a few people came to see us, but mostly no one ever really came to see us in Nottingham. There's maybe half a dozen people that liked Fudge Tunnel in Nottingham.
Do you think the name initially put people off?
It put me off, frankly. But I mean, I don't know. You've been in quite a few bands, so you must know the agony of trying to find a new band name.
Oh, it's horrible.
And having to agree it with other people, and there's always one person for each band name that doesn't like it. I'm going through this at the moment with that band I'm doing with Anthony, who used to be in Bivouac. We just can't come up with anything because we're all of an age as well now, so we're all quite opinionated, and we've all heard of a lot of bands, and we've heard a lot of shite band names. So, you know, we haven't come up with one yet. But yeah, the name Fudge Tunnel was just one that we could all live with. It kind of made us vaguely smile. Yeah. And I think it was something to do with there's a Jim Thirlwell album called Wise Blood, which has a song in it called The Fudge Punch, which is, well, you can probably gather what it's about. But there was also, it turned out, a band in Chicago called Fudge Tunnel. So we're actually the second Fudge Tunnel. And they put out a single, I think, and maybe a split with someone else. Oh, shit. And then, did you ever hear of a band called Sponge as well? And another probably Chicago band from like last half of the 80s. So those two bands eventually came together, members of, and they formed a band called Sponge Tunnel, who then toured Britain, and we played with them. So, I mean, incestuous or what? But Adrian came up with the name Fudge Tunnel, and he swears that he didn't steal it from the other Fudge Tunnel, but I reckon he was going through the Foreign and Independent 7 inches in selector disc and filed it away without knowing it.
Thought you could get away with it back then. Well, you know.
Yeah, well, he did for quite a long time. It was a while before we realised there was another Fudge Tunnel.
I never knew. I never knew.
Well, now you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm better than that John Peel book.
Yeah.
All that information.
So you're putting on gigs. You released that Man in the Bath EP.
Mm-hmm.
End up with Earache, and then before you know it, am I right in thinking you're touring America with Sepultura?
Almost before we know it, yeah. So we did the Sepultura shows, the first ones, when after we'd done the first album, before the second album, I think. But then we played with them in America a couple of tours after we'd done the second album, I believe, in a vain attempt to promote the second album.
I just love the story though. Like it just seems to happen fairly quickly. You sort of put your own things on at Mr. Bojangles or whatever, and then
it wasn't a bit mad. I mean, me first meeting Alex and Adrian is probably the end of 1988. And I guess we're probably on tour with Sepultura in 1992.
That's pretty, yeah.
So 3 years. But...
pretty impressive for a band called Fudge Tunnel. That's pretty.
Yeah, and even if it had taken 10 years, it would have been slightly odd because Sepultura's audience did not like us for the most part. We didn't go down well. I guess metal's a bit more wide-ranging in its taste now, but back then, really, they just wanted to see Sepultura. So the best example of that was we played a show with them in Paris in this big arena, which I think might have been called the Paris Arena, and it was full. I don't know how many people it was, but it was thousands, and we were the main support on the tour, so we had to go on before Sepultura. Before us were two French death metal bands. So we're sandwiched in the middle of the people they want to see and the people they like. And we're probably being very English didn't help either. And we played a few songs and did our usual shtick, and bottles are being thrown, water's covering the stage, possibly piss as well. I don't know. It's difficult to tell when you're on tour because everything starts to stink. But so we're starting to get shocks off the mic because of all the water and everything. And it was, I think it was the only time we ever cut a show short. And we did about 3/4 of the set. And as he left the stage, the great Adrian Parkin turned his back to the audience, dropped his trousers, and parted his arse cheeks at them, which makes him, in my opinion, a true English hero.
That is Jarvis Cocker-esque.
Yes, but to a much more hostile crowd. If they'd have been a bit better with their aim, they could have easily ruined his chances of having children. But to their credit, when we came off the stage, Sepultura themselves were in bits about it. We were laughing. We thought it was hilarious. Having gone down badly before, but Sepultura was kind of ashamed of their audience for treating us like that, and it took us a while to assure them that we were fine with it and that we were used to people hating us.
Yeah, it's they must have loved the band, though, right?
I think Max was the main instigator of it. I think he got sent a copy of probably Earache sent him a copy of Hate Songs, and he really liked it. And Max has he likes metal, obviously, but he has very broad-ranging music tastes as well. It's nearly all kind of hard music, aggressive music, but yeah. So and they invited us on tour, which nearly killed us in the end.
and how many dates did you do in America?
I'm not sure how many dates, but when we toured with Sepultura in America, I think we did a 6-week tour with them, maybe 2 months, I'm not sure. But on that one, that was a really good bill. That was Sepultura and us and Clutch and Fear Factory all on tour for 6 weeks around America, and we shared a bus with Clutch for the whole thing. And the next one, we did a short 2-week tour just before Christmas and came back on Christmas Day, which was a bit odd, getting into Heathrow or Gatwick on Christmas Day. No one here. And then I think we did another 4 or 5 week one after that, at which point we were all kind of ready to just stop being in a band altogether. Just had enough.
Yeah, no. Well, I've never done anything like that, but I can get like that after 1 week. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, none of us like touring, so the fact that we did so much touring was fairly miraculous, and it was all really in the space of 2 or 3 years that we did that. But there was kind of a 2-year period where I wasn't home very much between touring either with Sepultura or on our own, because our tours got longer and longer. We did a 3-month tour of America with us and Pain Teens and a band called Season to Risk, who were they were signed to Columbia and we were signed to Columbia, so Season to Risk were on the tour. They were a great band, but not sure how Pain Teens got on the tour, but they were really good as well. So, and again, it's all nice people, so it's fine. You kind of.
Am I right in thinking that made a major label band?
Well, Earache had signed to Columbia.
Yeah.
Earache did a deal with Columbia to put out Earache records in America, not worldwide, I don't think. And I don't think I'm not even sure it was all of Earache's acts. I think it was kind of the top 6 or something that Columbia wanted, which would have been us and Godflesh and Napalm Death, Carcass. I'm not sure who else, to be honest. But, so when we went to America for the first time, that's the only way we were able to go to America, really, was there was a little bit of money to get us over there. And we got tour support eventually, having run out of money several times. We eventually managed to get the tour support we'd been promised out of them. And so we did get a little taste of that whole major label madness, going to Sony offices and whatnot. And I don't know, I wouldn't recommend it, frankly, particularly coming from where we'd started from, which was a sort of vaguely do-it-yourselfy, vaguely punk rocky sort of place. A couple of years down the line, you find yourself talking to people from Sony.
Like, come on, like that. Like, I'm all about like doing it yourself and everything else, but I would also love to have that opportunity. Like, just one.
To be honest, just the amount of CDs we managed to blag when we went on that into the office at Sony, it was fantastic. And Alex, because he was by then partnered up with Sepultura's manager's daughter, Christina, also because he was the singer and more important, also went downstairs a couple of floors, I think I'm remembering this right, to the would it be Warner's? I can't remember. Another big label anyway, that Sepultura were on in America, and got to raid all their shelves as well. Yeah, we came back with a lot of CDs.
But like, so if you're talking 91, 92, that is the peak time when bands you wouldn't expect got signed to big labels.
Well, we know where that is, don't we? That's because of Nirvana. But...
Yeah, well, I have this. Yes, I have this.
Exactly. Yeah, I have that record.
Yeah, for that reason, I thought it's that peak time. That must have been exciting and terrifying in its own way, I would have thought, for a lot of bands.
Yeah, it was, because the thing is that within the band, we all knew about Nirvana and the whole Seattle scene, which became cool grunge and everything, but they were just some other bands along with all those other American bands we liked, like all the like Halo of Flies and Big Black and all the Chicago bands and Naked Raygun, loads of American bands, but they suddenly became the famous ones, which was a yeah, it did kind of stick in the throat a little bit because they weren't the best of them. We didn't think. But
No, well,
I would prefer Tad to Nirvana anyway, but and
yeah,
Mud Holly.
Kurt Cobain was a bit more good looking than Tad Doyle, though, right?
Well, it depends what you look for in a man, Joe. Really, you know. I mean, go back to that first record you pulled out of the miner in the bath. You know, he's a sexy man. You know, there's a lot of him.
Well,
I did meet Tad many years later, and he was a lovely fella. I never met Kurt though.
no. Yeah. So did you play with Nirvana?
No, we never did. We went to see them on their first tour when they played with Tad. They did a sort of double headline flip flop tour with Tad, and we went to see them in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Well, so I saw them at Nottingham Poly as well, which was the first time I saw them with Dave Grohl, which was a big difference. And then the next time we saw them was at Rock City, at which point they're huge. And it was horrible. It was just full of the sort of people you avoid in the street, and they weren't good either. They were awful at Rock City, and we had to go on tour the next day. We went away for 6 weeks the next day with that in our heads. You know, oh God, Nirvana were bloody awful.
Well, it's just the reason I asked if Fudge Tunnel played with them is that first time I saw Nirvana was on the Bleach tour, and Godflesh supported.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been. The first time I saw them, I guess, would have been when they were doing Bleach as well. Well, as an album, anyway. I don't know. I'm not sure quite what they were promoting, to be honest. But
yeah, I think it was Godflesh and I want to say Silverfish supporting. So
it could have been. Yeah,
it was that world of bands were doing those supports. That was a story in London, and I just wondered if.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Silverfish were definitely going to be a good addition to the bill in London, because they were probably pulling about 300 people by themselves at that point. So.
Yeah, it's like Silverfish and Therapy, because that's where, like, I saw Silverfish and Therapy so many times around that time. They were on supporting every single band that ever came through.
Yeah, and
we'd go and see them as well play. It was exciting time.
Yeah. We used to play with Silverfish a lot as well. So.
Yeah.
I
couldn't find my records of them, actually. I could only find the CD, which is their first 2 EPs. I
had a look as well, actually, and I could only find the last album that they did. I think the one with the Indian dress on the front, the name of which is gone now, but it's not their best record, so I decided not to use it anyway.
Yeah, I really like this, and I thought Fat Axel was pretty good.
Yes, that is good.
Yeah.
In fact, I used to have the T-shirt, which I probably swapped for a Fudge Tunnel T-shirt.
Which just as an aside, I think they call that because someone said that the Silverfish singer looked like a fat Axl Rose.
Oh, it could be. I'm not sure, but that does sort of ring a vague bell. Yeah. It's not a nice thing to say, but
no. But they embraced it.
And I'm also assuming that whoever it was that said that didn't say it to Leslie's face.
Oh, no way. I don't know her at all, but she used to terrify me, and So.
She was lovely and terrifying in equal measure.
Yeah.
And probably still is.
Yeah. So after Fudge Tunnel, you do a record label.
Yes, BGR Records, which was supposed to stand for anything I wanted it to stand, and I was never going to tell anyone what it stood for. But the one it ended up being mostly was Bloody Good Records, which was also, Trade Descriptions Act could probably have had me as well if I'd have let anyone know about that, because they weren't all bloody good records. Some of them were good, but they were mostly friends bands, some of which were good, some of them weren't. One of them was Tube Surfer, which was a band that Adrian started drumming for, some guys he met around Loughborough where he was living. So another 3-piece, and it's a great record. And just to show you how useless I was at running a record label, it sold a few copies, so I immediately repressed and ended up with a lot of unsold copies and no money again. I just got over enthusiastic.
That's a problem to this very day for label.
Yeah.
You see that initial enthusiasm and you're like, oh man, like I've sold 12 of this. Let's
Yeah.
do another 500.
So 12 in a week.
I'm always going to the post office.
Yeah.
So, and then you set up with someone else and you can talk about it, CNL booking.
Well, I can't take any credit for CNL at all. The CNL is Johnny Barry, or Jabs to his punk rock friends. And he had been a booking agent for some time as CNL. And he kind of took me under his wing because I had no money, having blown it all on putting out bad records, or records that were really good, but that just didn't sell. And gave me some work as a booking agent. But he was already very established. He was Fugazi's booker, and what else did he do? The big ones were Fugazi, Rocket from the Crypt, and John Spencer Blues Explosion. So he did all those, and he had a lot of work, more than he could handle, some of which he passed on to me just to kind of lighten the load, and so I could try and dig myself out of my financial hole. But I turned out I wasn't very good at being a booking agent either, as it involves, if you're any good at it, it involves an awful lot of going to shows and talking to people and being nice to them and buttering people up, and then being quite hard-faced about things and making sure that the band gets paid. None of that am I very good at. And also the late nights, I like to get to bed, so.
Oh yeah.
But I got to see loads of bands. I mean, I got to see, I've seen Rocket from the Crypt and the Blues Explosion and Fugazi countless times, and I've never once had to pay. So from that point of view, yeah.
And now
I also managed to book some great bands as well, but unsuccessfully. Ligament being one, who I love. They were one of the first bands I took on. Not sure they even really needed an agent, to be honest, at the place they were at musically.
Yeah.
I hardly ever managed to book them a show. They got more shows themselves than I ever got them. And of course, they kind of morphed gradually into Part Chimp. And another band that Tim from that band is in was Penthouse, who I also represented for a while, and again did a fairly lame job of trying to promote their ideals. There you go. You see, what a great record that is.
Yeah, Voice Blues, eh?
They're possibly to this day still the best, most exciting live band I ever saw.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know this song here, Voyeurs Blues, turn this off and go and just check it out, because it's absolutely incredible.
It's genius. Most of the stuff they put out at that time was genius. Their second album wasn't as great, sadly, but the singles and EPs around that first album and the album itself are just fantastic. And like I say, live is where they really, really did it, though. I've never seen anyone quite that exciting to watch.
Yeah. When Tim did a brief stint drumming for us.
Yes, saw her the other night. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, for like the Cuckoo album, so around 2012, 2013. And like Bob and I used to watch Penthouse a lot, like when we were young. Like, so they were always supporting the Jesus Lizard and all these sort of bands. So we always ended up seeing Penthouse, but we loved them. And also saw the Love Blobs. Saw Love Blobs a couple of times.
Oh yes, yeah. I bought a Love Blobs record just the other day in rough trade secondhand.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And also he was drumming in Action Swingers occasionally.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
Yeah. When they did Europe, if their drummer couldn't make it over, he drummed for them. Got like one record with all the recordings. Anyhow, so when he ended up drumming for us, we'd look round and see Tim from Penthouse drumming for us. It was so exciting. Even though we knew him as Tim from Part Chimp, but as a drummer, that's not. We don't think, Yeah. So like I remember playing.
He's almost the indie Dave Grohl, isn't he?
Well, he was playing Super Normal Festival, and like his drums were like, he was battering his drums so hard he was having to chase them around the stage, and it was so familiar. It was such a flashback to watching him hammering the hell out of his kit for like Penthouse and whatever else. Yeah, it was really exciting.
I mean, to be honest, one of the main reasons I used to book Penthouse was because I used to like drinking with them.
Right.
So we had some fine parties, and don't remember a thing about them.
No, I think
We had many well
John lives in Australia now, doesn't he?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. I tell you what, I just got to let the dog out.
Go for it.
I've been trying to. I probably shouldn't say this whilst we're recording, but no one's watching. I've been trying to.
You can edit that; it'll be fine. So.
I don't know how to edit. Okay, and my son does the editing, and he's at university now, so
Oh right. Okay.
That has to stay.
I see all this stuff I've been saying. I thought this was just a warm up, and you'd edit it out. I was about to get interested.
We haven't got to the juicy stuff yet. No, I just love the Penthouse records, and I guess all I want is for them to be in print still. I'll leave it like that.
Yeah. Was it the Beggars Banquet sort of, weren't they? I think.
Yeah, so there was some.
Or the later ones were. But...
Yeah, like there's a label called Butcher's Wig that did some stuff. I don't know if that was the first record, and then they ended up.
They put a few out on other people's, friends' labels and whatnot, I think. But I think they ended up on Beggars Banquet, because I have a copy of the Beggars Banquet tribute album, which is like the Rolling Stones Beggars Banquet.
Oh yeah.
But it's all Beggars Banquet acts covering their songs. And Penthouse have a song on that. Can't remember which one it was.
Right. No.
Most of it's terrible, but I got given one. So.
And this is on World Domination Recordings.
Oh yeah, so that was Nigel, who was now. Yeah, I used to see Nigel quite a bit. I'm trying to remember how he was. Maybe World Domination was what I was thinking of. That it was backed by Beggars.
Right.
Yeah, Nigel was the guy who ran World Domination, as I remember. I drove him to Belgium once to see Penthouse. They played. I know. They don't think I'd do that now. They played a festival in Belgium. I think it was in Belgium anyway. We certainly had to go across some water, and I don't think it was Trent Bridge. So we went. It was, like I say, it was mostly just for the party.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course.
Laugh, just because we could.
Yeah, great band. So yeah, here we go. Let's talk about records.
Go on.
I send you a list.
You did.
Go through the list, talk about stuff. Hit me with a record from your favorite record shop.
My favorite record shop. Well, there've been many, and sorry for leaning over this way, but if you remember, we had internet problems, so I'm going to have to leaf through all these. They're not sorted properly. They're all the wrong way around. Okay, that one will do. That's one anyway from my favourite record shop. Halo of Flies. You know Halo of Flies? The guy who set up Amphetamine Reptile Records. This was one of his many bands, and they're just great. It's got a great sleeve, and I've ripped off this sleeve for many records that I've put out or done art for labels and whatnot over the years. With the sort of collage effect of the garbage collage. I know Fudge Tunnel used it at least once, probably more. And the best thing about this is it's got a bottle of MD 2020 on it.
Mad Dog.
Which I did used to drink quite a lot of. I discovered Thunderbird sometime in the 80s, and then once I moved somewhere a bit sleazier, discovered Mad Dog 2020 in all its various strange colours as well.
Yeah, I remember it being like this sort of blue.
Yeah, there was one that was blue. That was really vile, though. I did used to favour that might be. I'm not sure if that's orange. Yeah, there was a grapefruit one as well. But it used to give you a terrible hangover and a sort of sugar mouth as well as a hangover, which isn't a good look. Here's another one. So when vinyl was on its arse in the sort of mid to late 90s, Selected Disc, you could just get the most incredible bargains in there. And that one,
nice.
James Brown, gatefold sleeve. I think that was £4. I know. And which, it's not like it's not a 20p from a car boot, but it was brand new, and pretty much all of James Brown's back catalogue you could get for a few quid.
The Selected Disc started in Nottingham, didn't it?
I'm not sure, to be honest. There was one in London as well, of course, which was famous because it was on that Oasis album. But as far as I was aware, it was a Nottingham thing, and they opened a London shop. It might have been the other way around, though. But they had more than one shop in Notts, you see that. When I first moved here, there was 2 maybe, and by the time they shut, there were 3, all on the same street at that point. There was the sort of main shop. Next door to that was the second hand, and then a little bit further down the hill, about 50 yards down the hill, was all the singles.
Right.
So 3 separate shops, all Selected Disc. And they're all staffed by people like in High Fidelity, who would like sneer at you for buying the wrong record, or if you ask for the right record, would be incredibly helpful and knowledgeable about it. Yeah, you had to watch what you said. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Nottingham originally, and then the London one was, because the London one's not there now anymore. I think that's a sister.
Well, the whole thing got sold, shut down a few years ago now. I think it was the whole business. But it's one of the main reasons I moved to Nottingham, apart from the fact that my wife lived here.
She's not in earshot.
She's doing the washing up in the other room, so a plate will probably crash against my head in a minute. But I used to visit her when she was at university, and I used to come up to Nottingham. I was living in London at the time, and I discovered this wonderland called Selected Disc Records. And I may have the first record I ever bought in Selected Disc, if I can find it. Who knows? My badly filed records. I've also managed to bring in a whole load of records which are nothing to do with this by accident. Yeah. Where is it? No, it's not that one. There we go. That was the first one I ever bought in Selected Disc.
Oh yeah.
New York Dolls. I think I already had the first New York Dolls album, and I was on the hunt for that one. And it wasn't that expensive, you see. I think I bought the first Dolls album at the Record and Tape Exchange in Notting Hill, which was brutally expensive. For secondhand records, it was ridiculous. And if you try, I don't know if you ever tried to sell a record in there, but they'd give you like 50p for something that they would then sell for a tenner.
Yeah.
Many. Selected Disc was reasonable and had just an incredible selection. It was then after that I discovered the whole. At that point, the shop next door was all foreign and US independents, pretty much. And that was just bands I'd never heard, and then started to hear on John Peel, and that was all those American bands like Big Black, Naked Raygun, Bottle Surfers, all that stuff. So.
Yeah. Is that was your in for that world? Was it? Would you say?
Yeah, I guess so. I only really started listening to Peel when I moved up to Nottingham, I think. Before that, it was just like most people, I guess you just talk to friends and listen to friends' records and. Swap records and find out what you like. But yeah, John Peel was a big in for lots of things, really. Kind of because his take on records was so expansive. He liked so many different things. Yeah. He didn't necessarily like everything that he played you, but he played you all this stuff that you'd never heard before that you did like. So.
Yeah, no, yeah. Important.
Yeah, and there's not really anyone doing that anymore. There's a few that kind of pretend to be like him, like Steve Lamacq. And there's Mark Riley, who kind of does a decent job of it, but it's the sort of the breadth of stuff isn't there. The range isn't there anymore. It's all a bit kind of indie now.
I think there's a need for it now.
For something like John Peel. I don't know, because they've got the internet now, so you can Google things. So it's a lot easier to find out anything now. There's Spotify, and everything's on Spotify. Everything's on iTunes, and if not, there's plenty of other places you can go.
Yeah.
So maybe there's less need for a John Peel now than there used to be, but that doesn't mean that doesn't lessen his importance, I don't think.
No, no, not his importance. No, just like nowadays, I'm conflicted by it, because I think sometimes it's quite nice to have like for want of a better word, a gatekeeper, or someone sort of saying, here's this thing and here's this thing, and it's someone you can trust. If you could like tune weekly to someone you trusted, that's quite nice, because like your mates are one thing, and word of mouth, I love word of mouth, it's my main thing really, but just someone you could go to and they're like, okay, yeah, no, here's a session by like the Shipbirds from sort of wherever, and it just opened your mind to some sort of Texan.
You could be pretty sure he wasn't playing something just because a record label had schmoozed him into it.
No, yeah, exactly.
He was playing everything because he actually liked everything that he played.
Yeah.
And probably not that many DJs who are allowed to do that anymore. No. I don't think any of them have got that amount of power anymore.
So were there record shops before Selectedist? Say you were from Felixstowe in there, or?
Yeah. Well, there was in Ipswich, there was a record shop called Parrot Records, which again was a fairly terrifying place to go as a young teenager. You know, because I'd go in there and buy like Black Sabbath records and Hawkwind records and things, and then get sneered at because this is in the days of punk rock, and those bands were not trendy anymore. And my sister was once sent to Ipswich by some friends who ran a disco to buy Oh Bondage Up Yours by X-Ray Specs, because they were all, I think, too embarrassed to ask for it, and they knew that she was brazen, but it wasn't in stock, so she didn't come back with it, sadly. But in Felixstowe itself at the time, there wasn't really anywhere to buy records apart from Boots, the chemist.
Okay.
We had a few racks of, so with that in mind, I think I've got a record with a memory.
I love it.
Boots in Felixstowe. See if you can guess what it is while I'm looking for it.
What year are we talking?
Probably 1978 or 9, I think. And the thing is, you could go into Boots, and like all good record shops of the time, not so much anymore because you just get piped music now, but you could take a record up to the counter and ask them to put it on so you could have a listen to it, which doesn't seem to be the way anymore. And I'd never heard this record, but I liked the sleeve. So I took this up to the counter in Boots and asked them to stick it on as loud as they could. And Felixstowe's, you know, it's a quiet seaside town, lots of old people. A bit like Bournemouth, but on the East Coast. And it turned heads, put it that way. So I bought it immediately, and it's been one of my favourite records ever since, to this day. I mean, the pictures of Motorhead on the back, look at those guys. Don't you just want to be them? I did, anyway. And translucent green vinyl, which you probably can't tell because I've got a green wall behind me, but look, it's green.
Whoa.
So yeah, I didn't really know Motorhead. I vaguely knew that Lemmy had been in Hawkwind. And I'm not sure I'd heard Motorhead at that point, because like I said, I didn't really listen to the radio that much. And none of my friends liked Motorhead. And even after that record, none of my friends liked Motorhead, which kind of keyed me into the way I've gone about liking music. Is if I like it and nobody else does, I actually like it a little bit more.
Right, okay.
They become my band then. But of course, Motorhead became everybody's band. Anyone with a soul, anyway. You're going to tell me you don't like Motorhead now, aren't you?
Oh, no, of course not. But I was just going to, what I was going to say was we've got a Boots around the corner. I'd love to go in there now and ask for Motorhead records.
Just take all your Motorhead records. It's like, put all these on, please.
I don't think in my time Boots has ever sold records.
No, probably not. I'm not sure how common it was, because it's not like I kind of wandered around the land visiting Boots shops to see if they sold records. It's just it was the only place in the town that I could walk to that sold records. You had to get on the bus to go to Ipswich.
Yeah, well, for me it was W.H. Smith's.
Oh yeah,
it was the one on our.
That seems a bit odd as well, in a way. A newsagent's selling.
I've told this story a couple of times, but there was a 7-inch single by a I think they were like a Bay Area thrash band called Violence. Okay. Like it was VIO, like hyphen lens, like violence.
Okay.
I think they were like from San Francisco or something. They released a 7-inch single, and it came in a vomit pack. So like it was going to be like a bit sort of like juicy or whatever, and it was supposed to have like sick around the record. And for like 6 months, I went into Smith's like every week, said, and because I ordered it, every week I'd go in there and go, "Do you have the Violence 7-inch that I ordered?" No. Week later, "Do you have the Violence?" They never ever got it in for me, ever. And I went in there, yeah, and I
They're
never,
just stringing along.
yeah. And you know
I
what?
that. Maybe one of them was a big fan of Violence, and he'd had it for himself. You know,
And here's the kicker though: is my mum worked in Smith's, and she didn't even sort it out for me.
Oh, that's just disgraceful.
I know, right? But yeah. So there you go.
I doubt whether my mum would have done either. I mean, they were starting to worry about me about the time I started getting into Motorhead stuff.
I think that was the problem, yeah.
And rightly so.
So you've done your record of memories. That was one of my categories.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't. I wasn't going to just wait for you to ask the question. I'm trying to make it flow, Joe.
That's not what it is. You've ruined
everything.
everything.
It's natural,
All right, bargain find.
Bargain. Well, I've already done that one as well. That's the James.
I know.
I've got more than one bargain find, I think. Oh no, I've got another memory actually. Another good memory that I found. Which is and this is a brand new record as well. Just got it this week.
Right.
Hibu Shibiri. That's actually the front, but all the info's on the back. Hibu Shibiri, Japanese kind of psych rock band. Worshippers of Richie Blackmore and Jimi Hendrix, I would say, along with Bad Acid.
Right. Okay.
And they played at JT Saw in Nottingham, which you may well have played one time. I can't remember. Tiny little venue. A living room venue is what they call it, isn't it, or something like that. And not many people went, maybe 15 people. Me and the friend who persuaded me to go because he knew about them and I didn't. And they were just brilliant, just a three-piece, just blew my face off. And then they made a record of it in their bootleg series. So this is bootleg number 6 apparently, or volume 6, although that might be slightly disingenuous, I'm not sure. There's only 3 tracks on it, and you can hear me on it. You see, you can hear me going at some point. And also, best thing is it's in the wrong place. It's one of those false ending jobs where the music dies down and the audience goes, and then they immediately start up again because I haven't actually finished, and you can hear me go,
because you're not a real fan. You didn't know the song.
No, I'd never heard them before I went, so I played myself there, but
Well, so let's talk about because venues in Nottingham then, because I don't think we played JT Saw, but we have played. I think it's Stuck on a Name.
Okay, yeah, similar-ish sort of things. Stuck on a Name, where you actually play is actually smaller than JT Saw.
Oh, is it?
They're still very tiny, but yeah, similar things and very close to each other as well. They're both in Sneinton.
Right.
Yeah. You could spit from one to the other probably.
Yeah. What is the venue situation in Nottingham at the minute?
Difficult to tell, really. But most of them seem to have survived. JT Saw seems to have survived. It's just had a big refit for the studio that's part of it. Not sure about Stuck on a Name. The Chameleon, I think, has survived and is starting to advertise shows again. And of course, the Bodega's going because you're playing there soon.
Yeah, I'd forgotten where we're. I was hoping you were going to mention that because I couldn't.
See, it's all fun, Joe. See, I don't accuse. Mr. Chippies, come on.
You've done this before. Good cup.
Totally unrehearsed.
But yeah, no, Stuck on a Name. We like playing there. That was good fun. So we played there.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
The last time.
The loading's not so much fun though. All those stairs.
No, it's a total nightmare, and also I think the Chameleon was a total nightmare to load in as well.
Yes, again, stairs.
And the place we played last time, I think, I've got a feeling it's closed now. Has it?
Yeah, that's gone now. Yeah, I think you might close it actually. I can't remember, but yeah, that's the. Oh God, it's gone. The Maze.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was water coming through the ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think there'd been the upkeep. Had been, they knew it was closing when you played, as I remember. It was being run down. You know?
Yeah, I could tell. So hit me with the record you bought on tour.
Yeah, that was a tricky one actually, because when we were touring in Fudge Tunnel, we weren't buying that much vinyl because it was the time of the CD. So I used to collect CDs.
I'm happy with CDs. CDs are good.
Mostly used to buy, try and find Led Zeppelin bootlegs, of which that is an example.
Classic.
No idea if it's worth anything or not. I couldn't find any of the others, frankly. Half a dozen or so other things. The best one, which I couldn't find, was called Listen to This, Eddie, and it was a 3 CD set of a show at the Inglewood Forum in LA in '77, I think it was. And the show itself isn't that great. I think it's an audience recording, but it's worth it just for John Bonham's drumming on the opening of The Song Remains the Same,
right?
Which is fairly staid on the record. But on this one show, and on most live shows, it's usually the same. But on this one live show, it's like someone had given him speed or something. And he's still playing exactly the right pace, but he's playing 4 times the amount of drums as he normally does. It's like the whole opening 2 minutes is a John Bonham drum solo, but to the song. It's amazing.
Yeah,
and I've not heard any other versions of Led Zeppelin shows where he does that, but maybe he did it for a bet. I don't know.
He's someone that could hit the drums.
Yes. Probably not a very nice man though, from what I've heard.
The story I have is, and I don't care if it's not true.
I think when he'd been drinking, not a very nice man.
So the story I have is he's on the Led Zeppelin plane going somewhere, and he's up front in the Led Zeppelin posh bit where they're all really comfortable and whatnot. And he eventually gets up and goes back to the back where the sort of the minions are, and goes to his like drum tech guy and goes, if you want, go and sit in my seat, because you should really experience being up there.
His name was Mick Hinton, I think.
Right. And the drum tech guy's like, awesome, I'm going to go and sit up front where the band sits. It's going to be really comfortable. And gets up there, sits down, realizes that Bonham's pissed it.
Yeah, I've heard that one. It's not nice, is it? I mean, yeah, we've all disgraced ourselves on alcohol, let's be honest, but inflicting that on someone else just because you can doesn't seem right.
I don't know. I like it. Yeah. So that's Fudge Tunnel tours, but like, correct me if I'm wrong, you occasionally...
Oh, yes, I did rather oddly, after a break of 25 years, I went on tour in 2019.
Yeah.
2019, however you're supposed to say it these days, with playing bass for a band called Conan.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Extremely loud band, lovely people, and I kind of act as their stand-in bass player when their regular bass player, Chris Fielding, can't make it due to other recording duties, usually because he's a sound engineer and producer. And so sometimes that conflicts, but if I can do it, they'll still do the show usually. So I got to do a whole month with them. And I did buy one record, which I shall now find for you.
Go.
Press pause. Record. And it was bought new as well. It was at one of those really cool European venues, which I think was in Czech Republic, where it's sort of art century bar, and in the bar was a record shop as well. And I can't bloody find it. And this is the one I decided I had to buy at least a record. And of course I can't find it now. Hang on. Maybe I'll put it here. That's gone. Hang on. Pause.
Not pausing. He'll be back. He's definitely coming back.
See, that was good TV, wasn't it? I know. It's got buried under the Motorhead album. Just found it.
Whoa.
There we go. So the last, I believe, Earth album,
Oh yeah.
who I've got quite keen on recently. Not so much their very early stuff, that sort of noise drone stuff that they used to do, but all Earth albums are basically the same as far as I can make out. Sometimes they have guest singers, like I think your showbiz friend Mark Lanigan has done a little bit of work with them as well, hasn't he?
They used to live together. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, I think I'm right in saying that I don't know if it's true, there's a rumor going back to Kurt Cobain again that Dylan Carlson out of Earth sold Kurt the shotgun that he blew his head off with. You heard that one?
You know what? I'm not getting embroiled.
It's completely untrue. So I'm not saying it was true, just in case anyone's lawyers are listening. But...
No, this is Chris Summerlin territory.
Okay, yeah, Chris Summerlin said it. So if anyone wants to sue anyone, I have Chris's address. He is moving soon, but yeah. I'll forward all the legal documents onto him. So.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the Conan thing. So how did that come about? And
well, it's linked to Fudge Tunnel because John, who's the main guy in Conan, was like yourself, a bit of a Fudge Tunnel fan, but we were kind of his favourite band, it turns out, and so due to Facebook and social media and whatnot, we got in contact. And a couple of years after that, I think he'd been in contact with Alex as well at some point. And after that, at some point, he asked me if I wanted to play bass with him on a stand-in basis.
Awesome.
So what would it be, about three years ago now? I went out and played my first show since Fudge Tunnel.
How was that?
It was terrifying. We flew out to Portugal and did a festival in Portugal. It was several thousand people, and I'd had to learn all these songs, and Conan playing drop F, which is quite tricky. So you have to kind of modify instruments and things. You can't just play a normal guitar.
Okay.
You have to have particularly thick strings, and the E string, which is actually, of course, an F string, is like a cable and just kind of flaps. So, and because I was borrowing Chris's bass at that time, I didn't have a bass that was modified to. You have to kind of carve the nut out to accept the strings and whatnot, and it wouldn't really work on a short scale bass. But yeah, so anyway, and so I learned their songs, and I think we had one rehearsal before we went, like the afternoon before we flew to Portugal, and then I found myself playing with them, which was pretty darn terrifying, frankly. And then the next day, we came back to England and played the Boomtown Festival near Winchester.
Oh yeah.
Where they had the Earache had a stage, because Boomtown has loads and loads and loads of stages, and Earache had a stage where Soulfly were playing. Oh. So I got to meet Max again for the first time since then as well, which is very odd. And I got to meet some of the guys from Earache, who, of course, obviously we just spent hours together cuddling and massaging each other's egos and buying each other's drinks. So.
They're not watching, don't worry.
There'll be spies somewhere. But. No, but it was very odd to go from the Portuguese thing, which was really good and well run and beautiful weather and well attended. And then the next day, it was like, oh, now I remember this. Yes, pissing, drizzling rain, no rider, nothing to eat, nothing to drink. It's freezing cold and no one's watching. So,
was it
just like being back in Fudge Tunnel?
I've seen those Boomtown lineups, so there's like every band on the planet is playing.
Yeah. Usually at the same time as your band.
Yeah. I say every band.
I think Gorillas played when we played, about 500 yards away from us. And
big crossover there between Conan and Gorillas.
Well, the thing is, the audience at Boomtown didn't seem to care, really. There wasn't. It's mostly very young children who are off their faces on ketamine, from what I could make out. There was no sort of rock audience or no punk audience, or just people who've come for the event and drift from tent to tent, and everyone's heard of Damon Albarn.
Yeah, but like Conan have done like remarkable stuff, I think, to get where
They must be on there. They've got a new album coming out hopefully this year, I think. So there must be like 6 albums in now, maybe. Yeah, right. They've carved out something unique that's definitely no one else does what they do. There are other people in the sort of doom genre, but there's no one that does that.
Yeah. So how is it though? Just like being like the like a session musician. It's like stepping in.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
it's really good because there's apart from the usual sort of nervousness about performing in any way, there's very little pressure because it's not on me. It's not my band. It's nice to be in it, but there's very little responsibility other than trying to play as well as you can, and give people their money's worth. But no, it's great, and they're all lovely people as well. So it's nice. It's nice being on tour with them. I enjoyed that 1 month with Conan probably more than I enjoyed any period of time on the road with Fudge Tunnel. It was much less miserable. There were moments of misery, obviously, but of
course.
But yeah, older and wiser, possibly. But Fudge Tunnel tours were pretty miserable for the most part.
Why do you think that was?
I'm not sure. It might have been something to do with expectation, and not realizing that your expectations probably won't be fulfilled. Just basic homesickness.
Right.
All 3 of us were fairly, homely people. Not particularly adventurous people. We like making noisy music, but we didn't particularly want to sort of lead that rock and roll bullshit lifestyle, and that's really one of the few ways of entertaining yourself when you're away for that long is to do all that bad stuff. Debauch, but no, obviously, like everyone, there's an element of debauching, but it was very homely debauching. It's kind of lager and a roll up, rather.
Batter of cheese.
I mean, for instance, we once got a night off in Amsterdam. Now, you would think, wouldn't you? Night off, rock band, Amsterdam, carnage. Now, we stopped in and watched the international football on the hotel telly. Nice. We probably entertained ourselves chemically as well, but we didn't go out. It was just I can't be bothered. Let's have a rest. I'm tired.
But yeah, if you were out, like if you was on a 6-week or an 8-week tour, it's nice to have a night in and watch the football.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Particularly once you'd seen all the horrors that could be awaiting you just the next day. All the things that can go wrong, all the terrible situations you can end up in.
But I don't believe that as a band you must have been adventurous, because there's a point where you're just like, okay, now we're signing to this. You're signing to a label that's quite big.
Like I don't think we really knew what it meant, though.
Right.
I don't think we really understood the sort of implicit obligation that there's supposed to be when you sign to a label. They give you some money and some promotion and whatnot, but you're supposed to go out and
what did the contract what did the contract say?
Oh, I can't remember. It was all in legal talk. I just signed it. No, it was well, we signed several contracts over the years, you see. So that we signed a contract with Earache to start with, and then we signed another contract with Earache when they signed with Columbia, or did their deal with Columbia. And they're supposed to give you tour support, but there's no figure for tour support. It depends what comes up. And we toured in America quite a lot for the level of band that we were, and that cost a lot of money. So, we technically owe Earache quite a lot of money, which is why we'll never see any money from any Fudge Tunnel release that they ever decide to put out.
Right. So you agree to go on tour. They say tour support. Tour support means what, $100 a day or whatever for food and drink. I don't really know.
No. It means that maybe paying for hotels and buses and vans and fuel and the whole thing.
Oh, the whole
and the fees that come in just get offset against that goes, you don't take that away with you. What we did get was merchandising money. So much like today, the only money we ever really made was for merchandising, because we never sold out our merchandising, and we used to sell a lot of t-shirts because we made quite cool looking t-shirts and people wanted them. So. Which brings me to that t-shirt, which is a very nice t-shirt. But how many of you sold of that blue t-shirt of a man on a penny farthing?
Oh, I only made 50. They've sold. I sold them all.
Oh, okay, right. I'm just saying, do it in black,
Yeah, no. Well, I might do another one, but I'm not really interested in. It's not what I'm doing. But to be honest, I like the design. That's the thing. I like the design. It's Tim Farthing.
I'm biased because I used to print t-shirts. That's what I was doing as Fudge Tunnel started. I quit my job and started on the Enterprise Allowance scheme, printing shirts. So I used to early on, I used to print all the Fudge Tunnel shirts, and a lot of the bands that we knew in Nottingham would come to me to get their t-shirts printed. So I did okay at it. But then when we started touring, I couldn't do that anymore because you can't print t-shirts in the back of a van or on a bus.
Yeah.
So I had to give it up and got other people to print our shirts. But yeah, I get a bit precious about t-shirts. No. Well, we used to have endless arguments about what's going to go on the next t-shirt kind of thing. So I always had the best ideas, but the other two would just never admit it.
Okay. They're not watching either, so it's fine.
Well, who knows, you can never tell. Yeah.
But the thing for me is that I get fed up of black t-shirts, but they always sell the best. They always sell.
Yeah. We just I just did some more Fudge Tunnel t-shirts to sell on the Bandcamp page, and we did one as a baseball shirt, like a ringer, I think they call them, and one as a black shirt with grey print and red print on the back of both of them, and the black one has outsold the other one 2-1 or more, possibly.
It's insane, isn't it?
I don't know. It's partly the metal, I suppose.
I think it's more
and the goths.
I whisper it. I think it's more that people of a certain size prefer black t-shirts.
That's true. Yeah, I've sold a lot of XXL t-shirts.
And that's fine. I'm just,
and a few small ones as well. So it's, there's definitely still a contingency of giants and dwarfs that do like Fudge Tunnel.
Nothing in the middle.
It was just nice to know that, that those guys are still into the old music,
So here's a question that I think I already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would Fudge Tunnel ever play again?
We always joke about it for the very reason that it's so unlikely that we will ever play again. But it started, I've managed to start quite a few online rumors by joking about it, to the extent that I've had American agents emailing me asking me if I want if I want representation to book a European tour.
Yeah.
And if they knew the truth, and if they had any sense of irony, having read the rumors, I mean, for instance, that there was a Fudge Tunnel tour, which was not mooted, but which was cancelled due to the COVID crisis. About this time last year, everyone was cancelling everything, weren't they? All the tours were being cancelled. It was quite sad, quite grim. And so I put a thing on our Facebook page about how, sadly, due to the ongoing pandemic situation, Fudge Tunnel have had to cancel their plans for a reunion world tour. And that the next thing I know, a few months later, as things start to ease up, I've got American agents getting in touch, wondering if they can book a tour for me. Oh no, 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 no! You haven't read between the lines at all, have you? So no, is the short answer. It's never going to happen. I mean, I'd love to do it, but on the other hand, I'm kind of glad it will never happen, because I like it when bands let it lie. I liked the fact that we did 3 albums and then we were out of there and we never went back. Most bands should do that, I think, even though I don't really like going to see reunions myself. I'm trying to think if I ever have done. I don't know. I guess I went to see Mudhoney recently, and that's kind of a reunion. But it's not really a reunion. They never quite stopped, I don't think. But
I think they carried on. But yeah, I'll take to heart the whole 3 album and stop thing.
Well, I think everyone has to. There are exceptions. Obviously, it's one of the great van games is name a band that's made 6 indisputably great albums.
And people, you know why people say 6, don't you?
It's the Black Sabbath thing. Yeah, because they did. But you know, and then it can keep you going for hours. You know, hours that would otherwise be spent bitching at each other. You can spend bitching about whether Mob Rules was a better record than Heaven and Hell, and whether either of them were any good anyway, because they didn't have Ozzy on them. You know.
Okay, here's the thing: Mob Rules is excellent. I love Mob Rules. I love Ronnie James Dio, and I love Mob Rules.
Do you? Okay, because I'm not a Dio man. I don't dislike him as a human being or a heavy metal singer, but Ozzy was always Black Sabbath to me.
Well, yeah, but like Mob Rules is.
Yeah, it's still a great record. It's just not like a Black Sabbath. Same with Heaven and Hell. Sounds great. Got some great riffs, good tunes and everything. Everyone's doing their job really well. It's a great record. If it had been by anyone else but Black Sabbath, it would have been a brilliant record. But Black Sabbath are better than that. It doesn't actually sound like Black Sabbath, really. Even our Lord Tony Iommi isn't really doing the Tony Iommi thing on it. It's like he's kind of playing soft rock or something, you know, compared to Master of Reality. Can't put it. Anyway, we should do this in the back of a van sometime with lager.
I think we'll do it in the back of a van when I'm driving Fudge Tunnel on tour.
Okay, yeah. You may have to fight John Davis from Conan for the job, though.
Oh, right, yeah, of course.
He's already got dibs on that job, driving Fudge Tunnel when they're on tour.
I'll do the merch. Okay, when I'm selling merch for Fudge Tunnel on tour.
Also, Conan have to play with Fudge Tunnel on tour, which means that if Chris can't make it, I'm going to have to play 2 sets. And I'm not doing that. Not unless I get double money.
I'm coming. Right. Hit me with a record that people wouldn't think that you'd like.
Again, there was loads. Where are we? That's a good one. Bought that the other day. Can you see it?
I can. Yeah. What is it? I can't make it out there.
It's the first Jazz Butcher album.
Oh, okay.
The Jazz Butcher was sort of, I guess, an 80s band, kind of funny indie, a joke in every song, a song in every joke. And they just have great lyrics and skippy tunes, and I kind of fell in love with them early on. A friend of mine ended up roadieing for them, and another friend from Felixstowe ended up playing bass in them, I think, briefly. What else? I love soundtracks, particularly the soundtracks of John Barry. Look at that little beauty.
Looks nice.
And I'm going to go, hang on. Wait for it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
George Lazenby in all his glory. Isn't that? And he's got a martini in one hand and a gun in the other.
And
Genius. Hang on, there might be another one. There's another one. Well, while we're on guilty pleasures,
10cc.
Very fond of 10cc.
Yeah, I like 10cc.
They're just genius. I think one of the more underrated, huge selling acts.
No, I agree.
I don't think they get the the respect that they do. Obviously, they sold a lot of records, but I think they just got remembered as a band that had some big pop singles, and they did. But the invention in 10cc's records, I think, is hugely underrated. Also, another great sleeve. Yeah.
Did they start off? They started off as like a studio band, right?
Yeah, so they're all sort of Manchester songwriters and musicians, or at least they were in Manchester, I think. And they were never really meant to be a live act, I don't think.
No, that's right.
But they did become a live act, I think.
Yeah, I have a feeling that it was Strawberry Studios in Manchester, and
that's right. Yes,
and they were kind of used to make that studio good, as well as like recording their things and whatnot. And then Strawberry Studios ended up doing like New Order and Joy Division and whatnot.
Oh, so they were. Oops, I have a. No, not that one. Sorry, thinking on my feet here. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you that one as well. Just not necessarily one that people wouldn't think I'd like, but it's just one that has always, because you like a bit of packaging, don't you, on your records? You like the wide spine and that sort of thing. This doesn't have a wide spine, but it does have a great sleeve, particularly when you turn it round.
What is going on?
That is a sticker. And if you unpeel the sticker, that's the guy.
Sweet. I don't know the band. Is that the band, Bastards?
Yes. And they also take the biscuit for nabbing the best band name ever. I think Lemmy was going to call Motorhead Bastard, but decided he'd never get a record deal. But they're called Bastards. And it's on. I think it's on Amphetamine Reptile again. Oh, well, this one's on Treehouse actually. It's the sort of import version, and it's just two guys. They also had a song called "Shit for Brains" as well, as did Fudge Tunnel. I nicked the title of "Shit for Brains" from Bastards, but it's just late '80s American noise.
Yeah, I got a record by a band called Bastard. A Japanese band called Bastard did an album.
Okay. This is plural. This is better. This is more than one bastard.
Yeah, well, so many bastards.
You put down your bastard, I'll raise your bastards. What else did I have? I don't know. I think I maybe had the James Brown as something that people wouldn't think I'd like as well. I think Supertramp as well. I nearly got, but I can't find that now. But that's another guilty pleasure. Supertramp.
You think? Because for me, like 10cc and bands like that come from being sort of 8 years old and it being like something my parents might have listened to. So I've got a real like soft love.
Yeah, kind of get that. But my parents would have listened to James Last and the Black and White Minstrel Show, things like that. So, although James Last did once do a James Last orchestral version of Silver Machine by Hawkwind, which if you ever get a chance to dig that one out, it's mind-blowingly bad.
Okay, I was expecting it to be really good, but no.
But it's very odd because the vocal line is all done with the horns. It's like ba 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 ba, and I don't think there's a guitar in it either. It's really odd.
Do you remember there was a band?
I don't know.
Remember there was a band called Mike Flowers Pops?
Yes, that was sort of early mid '90s when there was a sort of lounge music.
Yeah, they were doing a similar sort of thing with like those sort of songs.
Yeah, it was trendy for a bit, I think.
Yeah, I can't name any of it, but that just rings a
distant.
So actually, I wanted to. Here's a thing. Seeing as I've got you here, before we get to the end, the Cat Scratch Fever 7-inch came with. Big fans of Ted Nugent.
Yes, I sort of ironically so, I suppose, because he was kind of the epitome of the degenerate rock god. Great guitarist, and also a complete arsehole.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
which he continues to prove to this day. I mean, he was an arse back when we made that record, and he still is. He's still arsing basically, which, you know, sort of grudging respect. But I mean, I don't want to sit down and have tea with Ted Nugent, if that's what you mean.
No, I was just wondering about it. And then, was it just something that, like, you was it a plan, or was it just like, oh, we also recorded this, and Earache were like, oh, well, we might as well do a 7-inch with it?
We had we, like most bands, we used to like to fool around with a cover version from time to time, and that was just one of them that came along, which we thought was funny. And we our plan with covers usually was to try and destroy them, which is what we did with Sunshine of Your Love, most effectively probably. But we think we did the same thing with Cat Scratch Fever. We were kind of doing a job on Ted Nugent rather than paying homage to him. The guitar solo, for instance, is not played by Alex. I mean, Alex wasn't big on guitar solos anyway at that point, but we wanted it to be a really bad guitar solo, which, unless you're Les Dawson playing the piano, is not easy to do if you actually do know how to play the guitar. But the producer of that record, Colin Richardson, really didn't know how to play the guitar. Great producer, shit guitarist. So we got him to do it, and we gave him 2 goes. So he probably held a guitar in his hands before, but he really didn't know what to do with it. And we let him use the second take instead of the first take. And he's credited on the album as Martin Mutator, I think, for the guitar solo. On he did all those early Earache bands like Bolt Thrower, Napalm Death. But so Earache kind of put us together with Colin to do the record. We didn't know him, but he came along and hung out for a bit. And he actually made a songwriting suggestion about Hate Song as well. It's the only input he had in that way. He kind of engineered it more than that, but he got us to shorten Hate Song a little bit. I think it was like 8 minutes long to start with. And it goes on a bit anyway, but you know, it was probably like 5 verses instead of 3 to start with.
Yeah, but yeah, I absolutely love this record. But so tell me about the cover.
Okay.
It's
black.
I spoke with Steve Gullick.
Oh yeah, he took the photo. Yeah, that was taken at one of the hottest gigs we ever did. Not, as it turned out, the hottest gig we ever did, but it was at the Camden Falcon, and I think we played with Slum Turkeys, who were also on Rob's Pig Boy label, who were a band from Manchester. They don't think they ever got to make an album. They put out a couple of EPs. And I guess, was it Sounds? Steve used to work for Sounds at that point. But they reviewed it and sent along a photographer, and he took some photos, one of which we ended up using. And you can tell how hot it is, because we weren't generally prone to getting our nipples out on stage. It had to be pretty hot for us to get our shirts off. Yeah. But that was probably 2 or 3 songs in. It's ridiculous.
The Camden Falcon holds... You can't get 200 in. I'd be surprised if you
got 200 in. No. But it was rammed. It was the first time we ever played in London ourselves, as in not supporting someone, where anyone showed up, as in where, you know, it was full and it was a proper successful gig. So it was all a bit of a shock. Yeah. But it was in like July or something, and I don't think they had any ventilation at all, and it was full, and everything just melted. I mean, I discovered the other day that it's on. There's audio of it on YouTube. So I haven't been able to listen through to it all, to be honest, because it's pretty painful listening. It's just someone with a recorder. But the amount of farting around between the songs is frightening. Part of which was that day was due to the heat, because as soon as we played half a song, everything went out of tune.
Yeah.
And my trousers fell to bits as well, in pure comedy fashion. I think it's the same show. I was wearing pajama bottoms cut down to shorts that I got from a charity shop.
Very
and they must have been, very. That's Ed from Sync again, putting ideas in my head. But it turns out that they must have been worn. Whoever owned them before probably died in them and had worn them for the previous 30 years, and they were wafer thin. And with the rigors of heavy rock. They just felt a bit on stage. So as soon as the guitar kind of brushed across, the holes started appearing. I can't remember if I had spares, but I was clothed underneath though, so which was just as well, seeing as there was a photographer from Sounds there. You know.
Yes.
Imagine what that record sleeve could have looked like.
The Bastards one.
Indeed, it could have, instead of Alex's nipples, it could have been my nads. You know?
So the last subject I send to people is favourite 10-inch and your thoughts on them.
Yes, well, as you say, it's the most maligned format, and with good reason, because it's a bit rubbish, really. So I don't have many, so I brought them all.
Okay, cool.
So Stupids and Hard On Split, great record, but not long enough because it's on 10-inch. It should have been an album. Nice photos of the band being silly on the back and nice illustration. This one's a bit special. I think it's a Man's Ruin, Killdozer, with the ritual device on the back. 2 heads 10 inches, which are probably worth a bit these days, but I'm not going to sell them.
Man's Ruin as well.
Love that. I was the head's agent as well. Yet another of my unsuccessful forays into picking up British bands to agent for, who really didn't need an agent because they weren't that bothered about playing gigs really. I mean, they'd have liked to have played gigs, but no one really knew them. They were making great records, but they weren't selling lots of records. I mean, they're a lot more kind of well known on the underground now than they were back then. Right. But great records though. I think I managed to book them 1 gig maybe. Well done. Supporting the Saints in Birmingham, I think it was. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, it would have been better as an album. So it's the thing this came out. It's got the limited edition Reading Festival inserts. So it's basically a bit of paper with lots of pictures on it. Which again, in these days of the internet, a bit of paper with lots of pictures on it. I'm not sure that's the way to sell a record. You know, it's just like contact strips. But because it's got a sticker and it says limited and
probably limited to 10,000.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there are better Butthole Surfers records. There are longer Butthole Surfers records. And I have both of them. That one, I've got a feeling.
That's 10.5 Newton.
You might know those guys. Do you know that?
How do you know that?
I think I got sent it when I was agenting. You know, the way people of my generation used to send cassettes out, people used to send actual records and CDs out to agents and get gigs or see if whatever. Yeah.
I love those people. They're great people.
Just putting themselves about. But yeah, it's a good record. I put it on the other day actually for the first time in a long time. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, they're Hastings band. Hastings.
Right. The last and almost certainly the best of all these records is that one. Yeah. Which is an absolute storm of a record. Yeah. National Ligament Day. What a song. Yeah. So yeah.
You weren't at their last gig, were you?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I saw Ligament a lot because, as I said, I was their unsuccessful agent. But if I got nothing else out of it, I got that record because that's a great record. With a great sleeve. But you know, you could have probably fitted it on a 7-inch, or made it one side of an album. You know, 10 inches are just annoying. Almost as annoying as I got the last Sparks album, and it's one of those double albums that plays on 45.
Yeah, I don't like
that. And I always forget, so I put it on. It's too slow, and then after I put it on, I put the next record on. It's too fast. It's like, come on, just play it at the normal.
Do you have this record though, the Bivouac album?
Yes, I do.
So you've got another 10-inch then, because that comes with a 10-inch.
Okay, yeah, possibly. I'm not sure. I haven't had that Bivouac album out for a long time. I think I played the brown one. Is that one tuba, or is the other one tuba? I forget.
This is tuba. The other one's an EP. This is like a 12-inch. EP.
Right. Okay. See, that would have probably worked nicely as a 10-inch.
This would have been a perfect 10-inch.
Yeah. But, yeah.
This came with like a 10-inch with acoustic versions that I probably never ever listened to.
Oh yeah. Frankly, you don't want that. Yeah.
What label did this? They must have had money. Elemental? Yeah. I don't know what that's.
Yeah, Elemental did have money. They were They were kind of Sub Pop in Britain. They used to they'd done a deal with Sub Pop to be Sub Pop in Britain, or something like that. Anyway,
Right.
they,
So that was
they were run by a guy called Nick Evans, who was a punk band called Generic, I think. Back in 80s hardcore band.
right.
One of along with the Stupids and Heresy, all that guys.
So yeah. So talk to me about your new band then, with your man from this band.
Well, we haven't done a lot recently due to the pandemic. So it's me and Anthony and Dean, who used to be Fudge Tunnel's sound engineer, plays the guitar. And my friend Mike, who used to be the singer in Meatfly, which was a sort of Heresy offshoot, and he was also the second singer in Force-Fed, who were another of those Nottingham hardcore bands back in the day. So he kind of does singing and puts his voice through weird boxes like Gibby Haynes used to.
Cool.
And it's kind of like Can meets Fudge Tunnel.
Whoa.
But yeah, I'm not sure what it's like yet because we haven't managed to record anything properly. We just rehearsed and written songs. And it hasn't got a name yet because we can't agree on anything because we're all so old and stubborn.
Yeah.
But we are having a rehearsal this coming Sunday for the first time since last summer, probably.
That's a coincidence. This Sunday we're having our first rehearsal.
Are you? Okay.
It's November 2000.
Must be trickier for you because there's more of you and you've got to come from a lot further away from each other as well.
Yeah, we booked 8-hour sessions and travel.
Where do you rehearse?
We rehearse.
Don't give the address, obviously, because fans will invade and you'll never get in there. You'll need security.
We rehearse somewhere that's inconvenient for everyone.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
So yeah.
The sea.
Yeah. There you go. I'm looking forward to hearing it then. Bivouac Tunnel, they're called, right?
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Biv Flight Tunnel.
So, have you got any other records you want to show or talk about?
Let's look. Well, yeah, on the Nottingham theme, a band that never got as much as exposure as they should have done. The X-Rays. Are you aware of the X-Rays? Yeah, terrifyingly good band, but also terrifyingly bad. At the same time, in the same moment, they could be genius and appalling. And you never knew what was going to happen. They always used to get completely hammered when they played. And it wasn't quite sort of G.G. Allen stuff, but anything could happen. Things got broken. They played their last show probably last year in the summer, I think, or maybe it's the year before. It's things gone a bit hazy now. And it was like 22 minutes, I think they played for. And they played at the Rescue Rooms in Nottingham, and it was genius. They always have been. Their original drummer on the first two records, including this one, was Steve Charlesworth, who was the drummer in Heresy. He was one of the great drummers ever. But yeah, they were terrifying, and everyone should own this record. And the previous one, I don't think ever came out on vinyl, but I think it's called Speed Kills.
Right.
Every song is about sort of a minute and a half long, if that. They're all much the same.
Yeah, kind of New Bomb Turksy Mummies.
Yeah, they like the New Bomb Turks a lot. They've played the New Bomb Turks a few times. In fact, it might have been the New Bomb Turks which inspired them to form a band, I think I'm right in saying. But I printed T-shirts for them before they were the X-Rays, when they were sort of more indie pop experiment called the Sugar Rays. Okay. And the singer from the X-Rays, Gary, who was also the singer guitarist in Sugar Rays, and their manager then, but now their bass player, Coop, came to see me to get some T-shirts done, and they had T-shirts done with Eric Morecambe's face holding a pipe, and it was called Wahey Records. But that didn't last that long before they saw the New Bomb Turks and decided to become a filthy punk rock and roll band. Yeah. And they did achieve that ambition almost to perfection, I think.
Again, Mr. Chris Summerlin showed the 10-inch that they released. That's supposed to be great.
Okay, yeah, I have other X-Rays records. That's the only 12-inch vinyl I have, I think. I may have a 10-inch, probably not, I think, or it would have been in the pile with the other 10 inches. But I have quite a lot of singles.
Yeah. Yeah.
They put out a lot of records over the years, but
Mm.
and they toured America as well. They toured America just to go to a record company called Empty Records, apparently.
Oh yeah.
But so they kind of got on a plane, toured to Empty Records, said, "Will you put a record out?"
And they said,
I think they put a record out for me. I honestly can't remember. I'm probably getting that story wrong, to be honest.
"Oh, I like it. I
You
like."
would need an X-ray sitting here doing this with me to get the story straight, but then it would get really messy. So.
So, any other plans for the future?
Don't think so. No, I mean, I try not to look like most people. I think I try not to look too far ahead at the moment, but quite excited about having a practice on Sunday. Just playing in a room with other people is always nice.
Yeah, exciting.
I'm in one other band. I've just remembered, having said that. I'm in another band with John from Conan.
Oh yeah.
And a guy called Tyler Hodges, who's in another band called Toscar, who play around London a bit. And that's called Ungraven, which is a sort of, it's supposed to be kind of, it's ended up sounding a bit like Conan. Started off being just John on his own with a drum machine. Okay. And then he decided he didn't like that and got a drummer in, but he didn't want it to be like Conan. And then he played a few with him and a drummer, decided he should probably get a bass player in, so he got me in. And so now it's the same setup as Conan. So, yeah, if it works, I mess with it. It's the classic power trio. Yeah.
The best type.
Yeah. There's too many people in your band. It must get complicated. All those egos.
Look, here's the thing. It's a question actually for you. Then you're a bass player in a 3-piece band. The way you play bass is always going to be different when you're in a 3-piece band than if you're the bass player in a band with 3 guitarists.
I guess so. I've never been in a band with 3 guitarists, to my memory, anyway.
You
2 guitarists, but it's never worked very well. But
you change everything because you can't. You end up not doing anything fiddly whatsoever. So you just.
That would suit me fine.
Yeah, so you take a step back and just keep it as simple as possible to let the guitars do their thing. So
right.
If you're a bass player in a 3-piece, then you're going to be moving about a bit more. I wonder if there's more of a challenge to that.
I don't know. I have to play simple. I physically can't play that fancy because I only have 3 working fingers on my left hand. So that one doesn't work. And that's, as you know, it's quite an important finger for kind of doing pentatonic scales and whatnot. So I have to use my little finger instead of that one.
Oh, okay.
Which has always been a bit limiting, but I've kind of got around it by working out how I play bass and not worrying about how anyone else plays bass.
I didn't know that. The finger, I didn't know.
But it's weird. People never notice the finger. And I know I've come across several people over the years who've either had a crippled finger or a missing finger. And you usually don't notice it until they point it out to you.
Yeah.
I've known two different girls from way back when who both had, I think it was that finger missing. And they both lost it in the same way, which was they both like to ride horses and they had a rein wrapped around the finger and the horse shied and popped the finger out, which is a bit odd because, knowing one person with that story, you remember the story. But then I met someone else who had exactly the same injury for exactly the same reason.
When the second person started telling that story, did you just start yawning and go, "I've heard this"?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so missing finger. Yeah. Who's next? Come on, anyone got a leg missing? Come on.
Okay, it's been really good talking.
Yes, it's been a nice way to spend the evening.
Thanks a lot for saying yes.
I'll say again, yes. See, I could have said no, but then I wouldn't have got to do this, would I? So
what we're going to do, we're going to wave goodbye.
Okay.
And then I'll stop it, and we can just quickly talk afterwards.
Okay. You don't want me to kind of dance off or anything like that?
No, we're going to wave goodbye like they do at the end of old sitcoms.
Okay. Terry and June.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.